factor in speech that can readily be understood. Pausing also makes important points stand out. So important points stand out due to pausing. So we appreciate, Brother Marco, that you did that. I know several things stood out to me there in verse 19 of chapter 24. I noticed you did a nice job several times after questions of pausing for emphasis. So that's good. It lets the reader think about the question and focus on what's coming. So you did that after the question marks. Also, whenever there was a period, you paused very well and let the thought sink in. So that's a good lesson for us. Sometimes we run through punctuation, periods, and question marks, so we have to make sure we pause. So thank you for that example, as well as commas too. Verse 25, you did a nice job. That's one example when it says, "And as for you, O Son of Man." So you pause nicely at the comma. So thank you for that. We look forward to your next part on this school as well. And that leads us into our number 2 talk, which is entitled, "Under what circumstances did God allow the Israelites to engage in warfare?" So a very good question taken from our reasoning book. So we have Sister Summer Bell has the part, and the assistant is Sister Amanda Bell. And our setting here is explaining your belief to a non-witness relative.
Anthony's on leave this weekend, so we're going to have a big old barbecue for him. Are y'all going to come?
I don't think so. Not that we don't love him, but we don't approve of war.
Well, I know you don't. But you know, the Israelites engaged in warfare, so I don't see the problem.
Let's first look at Deuteronomy 7:1-2. Could you read that?
Sure. It says, "When Jehovah your God at last brings you into the land to which you are going, so as to take possession of it, he must also clear away populous nations from before you, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hittites and the Jebusites, 7 nations more populous and mighty than you are. And Jehovah your God will certainly abandon them to you, and you must defeat them. You should without fail devote them to destruction. You must conclude no covenant with them, nor show them any favor." So yeah, they went to war.
Well, did you notice who wanted to go to war?
Well, it was God.
Yeah, not a human ruler, but God directly led this war. And if you notice there, it said that the nations were more populous and mighty than the Israelites were. So this isn't something they could have done on their own. Now let's see why God wanted to get rid of those nations. Let's look here in Leviticus, in chapter 18. And in this chapter, it lists a bunch of disgusting sexual practices and other things like sacrificing your own child to false gods. I'll read that in verse 24 and 25. "Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these things, because by all of these things, the nations who I am sending out from before you have made themselves unclean. Consequently, the land is unclean, and I shall bring punishment for its error upon it, and the land will vomit its inhabitants out." So why did God want to get rid of those nations?
Well, apparently they were pretty disgusting.
Yeah, they were. So it truly was a holy war, and that could not be said about any of the warfare today. The Israelites were under the Mosaic law, but Christians today are not. They're supposed to follow Christ. And Christ directed his followers to lay down the sword. We can read that at Matthew chapter 26 and verse 52. Could you read that, please?
Okay. 26:52. It says, "Then Jesus said to him, 'Return your sword to its place, for those who take the sword will perish by the sword.'"
Here's another thing we can read that Jesus said in Luke chapter 6 verse 27-28. I'll read it. But I say to you who are listening, continue to love your enemies, to do good to those hating you, to bless those cursing you, to pray for those who are insulting you. So there we're supposed to love even our enemies, and killing them would not be loving, obviously. The early Christians took that very seriously. When we look at all the information available, until the time of Marcus Aurelius, no Christian became a soldier, and no soldier after becoming a Christian remained in the military service. Also, they refused to take any part in the civil administration or the military defense of the empire.
Okay, well, I guess I understand your point. But if you change your mind, the food will be ready about 5.